So today is Black Friday. I got on TikTok and YouTube for about 2 seconds yesterday and hopped right back off. I thought that I would, see if my mutuals had posted any new videos. And I was immediately inundated with Black Friday advertising. And sorry, but nope, that was a nope for me. Right, I know that I'm a bit eccentric, but I have never understood Black Friday, at least from the perspective of a consumer, right? I understand it from the perspective of a business. In fact, a couple of years ago, I covered Black Friday on my YouTube channel. It's one of the worst viewed videos I have ever made. And I don't know how much of that is because folks don't want to talk about Black Friday, look at consumerism, or if it's more that YouTube suppressed it. Every year when I try and reshare it on my Facebook page, nobody sees it. Here it is, this video reshared to my Facebook page where nobody saw it once again this year. I don't know how much folks outside of America practice Black Friday, but if you are unaware of what it's like or what it is, the day after Thanksgiving is a day that many businesses in the US have sales and count on this tidal wave of consumers coming in to do their Christmas shopping. It's the day they move from red to black in their books. It's the day businesses really start to turn a profit for the year. Right, but over the years, it's become emblematic of the rampant consumerism in America. I mean, I even remember as a kid in the 90s, the news was highly critical of these huge lines of folks that would show up for hours and hours waiting for stores to open on Black Friday so they could swarm in and hope to snag, a Tickle Me Elmo or a, fancy TV. And folks would like fight each other over stuff. They would fight each other for the ability to buy stuff, spend money, and they would wait in line for hours for the chance to do so. See, it never made sense to me. Right, when we think of Black Friday, this is what we think about. When people trample others for cheap goods mere hours after being thankful for what they already have. The idea that there's a holiday set aside for shopping, like competitive consumerism, the day after a national holiday, we're supposed to be focusing on what matters in life. Family, human connection, gratitude, being content with what we have. The very next day, we have this holiday that's, the polar opposite. And let's set aside very just criticism of Thanksgiving for another time. But also, Black Friday is not a holiday for any retail worker. It's one of the most stressful days of the year. A day they should be spending at home with their loved ones, resting, playing board games, going for a hike, reading a book, spending quality time with family and friends. Instead, they're working long days with frantic, angry customers so that their boss can make a handy profit. I have never been shopping on Black Friday. The idea of being in that crush and the idea of spending money in general feels terrible to me. And I usually try to have all my Christmas presents for friends and family made, except for candies and cookies, before Thanksgiving. And I do understand that much of Black Friday has shifted online now. Hence, as I said at the beginning of this video, when you open up any kind of social media app, there's this deluge of Black Friday advertising. And I mentioned in my series on Living Anti-Capitalist, which is on TikTok and on YouTube, that capitalism drives this consumerism mindset. And our country is founded on consumerism, in white supremacy and the patriarchy. And so, of course, this would be the logical conclusion, that we would be a culture that worships shopping and stuff, that we are willing to subjugate our own well-being, our own financial security on the altar of capitalism. And as I said in my original YouTube video about this subject, spending for the holidays on gifts, decorations, etc., puts a third of our country into debt to the tune of thousands of dollars. Debt that they will then have to pay interest on their credit card, undercutting their financial security even further. And these numbers are actually a little bit outdated. This is from 2020. We now spend more on stuff that largely ends up in the landfill. The majority, I think I've seen a couple of studies show anywhere between 60 and 81% of gifts and decorations, stuff we buy for the Christmas holiday season, ends up in the landfill within 3 years. It is all future trash, future pollution. So we spend our life hours making stuff for the bosses that they can sell to other people in order to get a paycheck. We then turn around and spend that paycheck, plus at least $1,300 more on stuff, accrued debt that we will have to work more hours for the bosses making stuff in order to pay off, only to see that stuff that we use or is gifted end up as pollution, end up as trash within 3 years. This whole cycle seems nonsensical to me, but this is so much of our ingrained culture. And in part 2, I want to talk about a response that was formed to push back against this. It is still active today, very active, but it may not be the actual answer we're looking for to solve the problem of Black Friday. So come back for part 2. Part 2 on my series about Black Friday and its alternatives. So we all know that Black Friday is this holiday here in America where companies attempt to get us to separate ourselves from our hard-earned money in order to buy stuff. Either to keep up with the Joneses at the holidays, newer, shinier, more plastic stuff, to decorate our houses, our workspace, or preying on our desire to show love and caring for our friends and family by telling us that the way to do that is to lavish them with purchased goods. Things that they don't really need and usually don't even really want. The majority of those things end up in the landfill within 3 years. You need only check the thrift stores after the holidays to see that for thrifters, that time is a veritable gold mine, as folks donate all of the things that they got as gifts but don't really want. It's also a good time to check your local Buy Nothing group or to re-gift things you got and don't need in your local Buy Nothing group. We talk about consumerism in America like it's a good thing. We use it in place of words like trade or commerce, but they're not synonymous. Consumerism comes from the term to consume, to use up. In the old days, they called tuberculosis consumption because it slowly consumed you. It used you up and you wasted away. And to me, that's what I think of when I think of consumerism in America. It is draining the life out of us. It's literally sucking our life hours. We are working more so we can afford to buy more stuff, so we can consume more from the marketplace, even though we know that stuff does not make us happy. Our actual real needs frequently go unmet in this society. Love, connection, a sense of community, our basic healthcare, housing, and food needs met. We lack peace and contentment. And consumer culture tells us that's okay. That hole, that lack that you feel, stuff it full of these products that you buy that will give you a momentary high. But you will quickly tire of those things or they will break quickly and that void will still be there. And I know I talk frequently on here about how there are 3 main systems of oppression that I personally see. I tend to say it's this trifecta of white supremacy, the patriarchy, and capitalism that are used as tools, weapons to oppress the American people. And consumer culture, consumerism, Black Friday, the messages, advertising with which we are pummeled. That gets us to do things like participate vigorously in Black Friday. Those are tactics and strategies used to further oppress us through capitalism. We are more discontent than ever. I think a lot of the outcome of the last election was a demonstration of how discontent we are, how anxious we are to scapegoat. How anxious we are to scapegoat rather than examine the actual structures that are truly harming us. And if we talk about the harm of Black Friday, there has been a specific movement founded in 1992 that seeks to be a remedy to consumer culture, an alternative to Black Friday that gets us to focus on sustainable ways of living and being, asks us to begin to deconstruct from capitalism and to move toward the things that will actually empower us and bring us some measure of contentment. And that movement is called Buy Nothing Day. And I want to talk about it in detail in the next video. Okay, part 3 about alternatives to Black Friday and the rampant consumerism in America. Right, consumerism is not a good thing. As I said in the last video, we used to call tuberculosis consumption because it would consume you from the inside out. Your loved ones would watch you waste away. And consumerism wants to consume our life hours, consume the planet's resources, consume our paycheck. It's eating our society up. Little by little, it is wasting away the values that actually bring us peace and contentment and a sense of purpose, and trying to replace it with stuff that we manufacture and we buy that ultimately doesn't really benefit us, but it gets the bosses at the top really rich. But in 1992, there was an alternative created to the rampant consumerism of Black Friday, a pushback against Black Friday. An alternative narrative that says, hey, there's lots of valid reasons you don't want to participate in Black Friday. You want to stand in solidarity with retail workers who have to work on this day. You think Black Friday should be a continuation of the national Thanksgiving holiday for everybody. You don't want to participate in buying more stuff produced by workers in other parts of the world that are largely exploited. You don't want to buy stuff just because advertising tells you that you need to, and in that way be more complicit supporting sweatshops. Likewise, you don't want to contribute toward the problem of pollution, excessive waste, all that plastic packaging, that carbon footprint associated with all of the retail goods we are expected to purchase on Black Friday. Maybe you recognize that consumer culture and Black Friday as the embodiment of that consumer culture cannot bring us happiness, and you want to return to a simpler way of valuing the holidays, to imbue them with meaning rather than stuff and going into debt. All of those are perfectly valid reasons to celebrate the holiday of Buy Nothing Day. You participate in Buy Nothing Day by not participating in Black Friday. It's very easy. You just don't buy anything on this day. It's a form of boycott, but it's also a way to personally realign your values and the way you see the holidays and your relationship with consumer culture. Now, if you wish, you can add another layer to it, focusing on handmade holidays. Draw something, sew something, cook something, sing something, build something, make something, buy nothing. It's about being productive rather than extractive. If you want to show love for other people, if you want to celebrate the holidays, how can you do so without purchasing products? Can a handmade holiday imbue more meaning into this time of year? I mean, I would answer yes, obviously, because I make almost all my gifts for loved ones. I have a video on how to do Christmas anti-capitalist. You should go check it out if you want to learn more about the handmade holidays that we do. Okay, so you might think that I'm a huge fan of Buy Nothing Day. And while I personally participate in it, I think that this conversation is more nuanced than that. In the last few years, there has been quite a bit of pushback against Buy Nothing Day. Buy Nothing Day pushing back against Black Friday. And now Buy Nothing Day itself is getting pushed back. So let's talk about that in the next video. In my last few videos about Black Friday versus Buy Nothing Day, it may seem like I'm setting up this dichotomy where we are immersed in consumer culture. We fully succumb to the temptation of Black Friday, buying stuff that we don't need, going into debt, or we swing the pendulum fully the other way and do Buy Nothing Day, which says don't buy anything on Black Friday and consider downshifting the way that you do your holidays altogether. Consider giving less stuff. Consider giving fewer gifts and have them be homemade, hand knitted, hand sewn, drawings, food, whittled, or give experiences rather than stuff. On a hike as a family. Go to the art museum with your friends instead of doing a secret Santa gift exchange. Volunteer somewhere at the holidays to find meaning in giving your time rather than receiving stuff. As I said in the previous video, I'm a big fan of the concept of Buy Nothing Day as a response, as an alternative to Black Friday and a tool through which we can learn to view the holidays differently and establish a different relationship with consumer culture. Now, I've talked about this in some of my other videos, but I've done a lot of work to deconstruct from very black and white puritanical thinking. And I want to encourage all of us to do that here as well. The last few years, there's been quite a bit of pushback against Buy Nothing Day as too rigid, too legalistic, sort of like single issue voters. There is so much more nuance here than this. And while you may have found Buy Nothing Day to be a really good experience, a way that helps you connect with your values and live them out, I just want to encourage us from refraining from the idea that because something is good for you, it needs to be universally applied, or that you can judge folks who make different decisions around Black Friday. Your experience is not the universal experience. There are myriad legitimate reasons why folks participate in Black Friday and cannot do Buy Nothing Day. It takes a certain level of privilege to entirely opt out of a significant chunk of our consumer culture. What do I mean by that? A lot of retail workers have no choice but to work on this day to earn income. A lot of working class families who do have this day off work, it is the only day in their schedule where they have time off of work and can do their holiday shopping. Maybe they don't have the time or capacity to make everything homemade because they're too busy working trying to keep a roof over their heads and keep their children fed. Not only that, but let's be real, there are sales on Black Friday that folks have to take advantage of. We are trapped in a capitalist system where we didn't make the rules, we don't control the means of production, we are all being exploited, and we have to do the best that we can without being puritanical. And sometimes that means, it always means there is no ethical consumption. If somebody needs a new washing machine and it is on sale on Black Friday, do not judge them for shopping on this day. If there is a gift someone really wants to give their child, and it is listed as a loss leader on Black Friday, do not judge them for taking advantage of that sale. I'll say it again, it is a privilege to be able to opt out of Black Friday altogether. We live in a system that we don't control where folks are often funneled somewhere where the choice really is taken away from them. And so not everybody shopping on Black Friday is doing so as some kind of slathering fool for consumerism who just wants to buy more and more and more and more stuff. Despite what the memes may show about these crushes of shoppers elbowing each other out of the way to get the last flat screen TV. Let's be really cautious that we're not engaging in poverty shaming and classism. by automatically criticizing folks who shop on this day. Okay, come back for my last part about why we maybe should shop on Black Friday and how we can do it in a more ethical way. Okay, welcome back to the last part of my series on Black Friday versus Buy Nothing Day. I've talked about what Black Friday is, why it's harmful for our culture, the problems of consumerism, the alternative of Buy Nothing Day, and the problems of engaging in binary thinking, as if our only options are fully succumb to consumerism via Black Friday or buy absolutely nothing. In the last video, I talked about reasons why folks may need to shop on Black Friday, but that doesn't mean that we should be judging them, that we should be presuming to know their circumstances. And I caution folks against engaging in poverty shaming and internalized classism. So for this last part, I want to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, that I tend to ramble about frequently on my YouTube, and that is creating sustainable, resilient local economies. If you don't want to shop from big box corporations, major retailers on Black Friday as a boycott, as a statement of your anti-consumerist values, more power to you. That is exactly how I do it. But it's important to remember that for small local businesses, Black Friday is a day they are counting on in order to keep their small companies afloat, keep a roof over their head, feed their families, pay their employees a fair wage. Much like in my videos about beekeeping, how I talk about the distinction between backyard beekeeping, sustainable beekeepers like myself who keep a couple of hives, versus the industrial model of migratory beekeeping, and how those two practices are nothing alike and we should not equate them, or we should not put them all under the umbrella of beekeeping. One is a sustainable, local, small-scale practice, and the other is a corporate industrial machine that is inherently harmful and extractive, right? Just like keeping backyard chickens for your own eggs versus factory battery chicken egg production. I think we need a similar view here when it comes to our choices of what to buy and how to engage in consumer culture at the holidays. Patronizing small local businesses where you know the owners, you know the practice, you know how they pay their workers, where they source their material, and you are making the conscious choice, you are actively choosing to give your dollars to those local businesses rather than big box corporations who exploit their workers and manufacture schlock that you don't really need, and manufacture crap that you don't really need that will just end up in the landfill. That is a conscious act of resistance. It is a conscious choice to make a decision. As we say in permaculture, slow, small solutions. You are engaging in a small solution in the effort to build robust local economies, to support your neighbors, to push for alternatives to the consumerism that mega corporations foist on us. Now, shopping local and shopping from small businesses often means things are more expensive. That is a price I would happily pay. And it has the added side effect of, okay, if I'm paying more to get something local, support a local craftsperson, a cottage industry, something grown and produced in my own community with a small carbon footprint, that means that I can't buy as much overall. So it's not really like a side effect, it's like an added benefit. I will consume less so that I can consume more ethically. And for me, that has ultimately been where I have landed right now. I take all of the values of Buy Nothing Day. Don't shop on Black Friday from major corporations with questionable business and environmental practices. Don't buy stuff I don't need just because some advertiser tells me it's trendy. As much as I can, thrift gifts, make homemade gifts, knitted, sewn, baked. And when I do shop, for presents, for holiday decorations, rather than making homemade, make the conscious choice to support local, sustainably made. I'll build up my local economy. And lastly, don't judge folks who may choose differently than me, because I don't know them, I don't know their circumstances. We are all doing the best that we can, especially this year. So I will make the personal choice, wherever I possibly can, knowing that I cannot do it perfectly, to try to live out my values. And I will be compassionate and understanding at the reality that other folks are doing the same. They're doing the best that they can with what they have access to, with what finances, bandwidth, energy they have. Our beef, our critique is with the capitalist system, with consumer culture, with the systems of oppression that control and manipulate us and reduce our quality of life and security. Our beef is not with our fellow humans who are trapped in that system. And I think it's really important to remember that at the holidays.